we are very lucky to have Raul Pitoro with us. He's the chief of party at a fantastic project in Mozambique. He's going to talk to us about his project and potentially what we can learn from his project and the activities that they have at the Feed for the Future. Welcome to DevTV. Good morning, Raul. Oh, hello. I think we lost Raul for a moment. Hello. Hey, there you are. How's it going?
I'm great, going good.
Excellent, excellent.
How about yourself?
Thank you very much for joining us. I know it's busy time for you over there in Mozambique. But just before we carry on, what I thought would be really useful is if you can give our audience a sort of like a quick synopsis of what Feed the Future is and who Raul is.
Okay, thank you so much, and thank you for having me. My name is Raul Pitoro. I am Chief of Party for the um, Feed the Future Agriculture Innovations that is being implemented in Mozambique. It is a 5-year market system program. It's funded by USAID with a total of a budget estimated around 21 million US dollars. In terms of the objectives of the project, FTF Innova started in 2017, looking at options to reach an equitable and inclusive growth and increased resilience in agriculture market. So the intention basically is to work with the market actors that are interested in changing their business practices in order to offer better values and services to their clients. So basically, this is what we are trying to do. And we are operating in 3 main pillars. The first pillar is what we call improved terms of trade. The idea there is that we find innovative solutions that allow smallholder farmers and output buyers to establish a marketplace where the commercialization is not only driven by exploitative or once-off type of transactions, but in more sustainable and fair market operations. The second pillar is what we call improved access to inputs, services, and information. As you know, Mozambique, the productivity is low. The agriculture productivity is low. The access to improved inputs is also low. We are operating under environment where services for agriculture are almost inexistent, but also information is lacking. So we are trying to tackle those issues in that pillar. The last but not least is what we call improved and quality relationships. The idea is to establish beneficial relationships between market actors. We started from a status where we found that market actors are operating in an environment where there's lack of trust and lack of cooperation. And those 2 aspects hinder development of a market in a specific space like Mozambique. So we are operating on those 3 main pillars. The entry points market actors. They can be a private sector, can be government institution, can also be universities, and so on and so forth. So we operate under those entry points.
I mean, thank you very much for that introduction. Just before we dive into the potential difficulties that you came across, and especially the constraints and how you brought market systems to address those constraints, what I thought would be really interesting is if you can draw a line between what's what the market actors are doing and your primary beneficiaries. By that I mean you have private sector actors within the country that are in this space. What is it that they were traditionally doing before you came on, and what was the situation as far as the beneficiaries were concerned, and how have you, as Feed the Future, tried to make that work to the benefit of both parties?
Thank you. In fact, when we came operating on an agriculture sector, we found several issues. Those issues were found by several other projects. One of the issues has to do with characteristic of agriculture in Mozambique. Farmers are dispersed and located in remote areas. That's one issue. And on the other hand, I'll give you an example of input suppliers. Input suppliers were operating mainly on commercial centers, or in the center of the village, or in the center of the district, and also they will have to travel long distance to acquire inputs, and at the same time, for them to be able to still continue running the business, they would increase some kind of markups on their inputs, and that was the status quo. What we have tried to do is to work with some of the input distributors to establish a distribution network that benefits the smallholder farmers. Because at the end, when markets or prices are increased or markups are made, who pays the cost is the smallholder farmers. So the idea is, how can we work together to benefit the smallholder farmers? We partner with several input firms, and we started some of the innovations. One of the innovation was to establish a distribution network which delivers input at last mile. The whole idea is that instead of retail points uh, working on stocks or managing inventory, why don't they just manage orders instead of having inputs stored in some conditions that are not good? For instance, seeds are sensitive to storage facilities. Temperature has to be controlled, and all of those issues, and that deteriorate the quality of seed, for instance. So we thought that one of the idea would be, instead of the retail points just focusing on storing, uh, um, how about transferring those responsibilities to a distributor? And instead of having a lot of inputs or merchandise in a shop, work on the pre-ordering system where farmers will come, will pre-order, and the retail point will register, aggregate, and request the volumes that have been pre-ordered. This way, he doesn't have to manage stocks, but he just have to manage orders. And the distributor will come on a specific days that have been agreed to deliver what has been ordered. So that was one of the innovation, and it's working well. Um,
That's actually very
the
clever.
other,
So it's almost like it's like the Japanese just-in-time processes. So effectively, you reduce the wastage, you reduce the need to store under really bad conditions or poor conditions, so that the farmers get the real quality and the quantity that they want at the time they want it.
exactly. It works. It works that day, and then it also all work on the on the supply chain side as well, what they call market to fork. So the idea is to, especially when it comes to food like poultry, the whole idea is to be able to sell fresh meat, fresh chicken to the consumer. And then that works when the pre-ordering system is in place. So it's been practiced by other market actors in different value chains.
Wow, fantastic. So, was has there been any sort of like infrastructural issues that have played into that system? Because I'm thinking, so for this to work really really well, you have to make sure the farmers are in, well, or the distributors are in the proper location, and if they have to drive across a certain distance, there isn't any major infrastructure issue that can affect the vehicle or affect the timing of delivery. How does that work? Have you had any issue along those lines?
Yes, there's an infrastructure issue, and that's this common issue in Africa. Roads are bad. Even the logistics are starting coming up now.
Mm.
Logistic services are coming up now, but the major one of the major constraints is the infrastructure that affects the whole development in agriculture. Although the government is investing heavily in infrastructure, we heard recently that the Millennium Challenge Corporation is prioritizing two areas for the development. One is infrastructure, and the other one is agriculture. So yes, infrastructure is a problem.
But it hasn't really stopped the innovation from being copied by other potential partners, or even other
No,
companies that are
no,
not exactly your partner.
no, not at all, not at all. Yes, private sector is aggressive, and we hope that it will continue that way.
Fantastic. So in terms of the challenges of bringing the private sector to change, I mean, this is a slight change of business model for them. Were there specific things that you picked up in the way that we present ideas to private sectors, and how responsive that the individual actors that you were piloting with, and then you started doing the project with? Um, what would you say is the primary um, strategy to make sure that you get a good response to an innovation that you're bringing to market actors?
Yeah, thank you. It was not an easy thing to do. Uh, Private sector has its own objectives and profit maximization and others. But when we came in, the talking points were, we are interested in helping you improving your business, but what we'll do, we will kind of buy down the risk of trying new ways of doing business. So we are buying down the risk for you to try. So if we fail, at least we learn and we adapt to move on. But the whole objective is to help you improve your business. So that way, we managed to um, convince some of them, but most of them were kind of skeptical, because it's not easy to try new ways of doing things. Uh, Changing mindset, it takes time. It takes experimentation. So our approach is what we call probe, learn, and adapt. The whole idea is that we should be able to learn as fast as possible and adapt the innovation so that can benefit the the private sector. And the second point, which we found interesting and important, is that we should be able to learn together and put the objective of the private sector first. So what we are trying to do is to see if he can even improve, do it better. But if he's not ready, there's no need to force it, because the ultimate goal is to make him buy the or own the innovation and take it to the scale. So as a project, we are very cautious at that point. We want to make sure that the private sector accepts, owns it, and then is willing to try. Then we bind down the risk. We contribute in some of the costs to experiment that. But the whole objective is we experiment and we learn together. We adjust and we allow him to move.
Fantastic. I mean, it's one of those major challenges, isn't it? I mean, to try and convince people to change the way they've been doing business, and find a way for them to really fully understand that the perceived risk is not as great as the real risk, or perceived risk is higher than the real risk. And
Yeah.
by helping them buy down the risk, hopefully that would make things work. So, so aside from that, from an organizational point of view, or an MSD professional point of view, what would you say are the key lessons so far in the future, aside from the way to present innovations to private sectors and get them to join? What are the other things that you would say to an MSD professional that potentially is working in this space or will work in this space?
Um, I see the value of experimentation. I think from MSD perspective, we operate as a facilitator instead of the real forefront type of intervention. So we want to facilitate the development of market systems. One of the challenge is how you select who can be the first mover. And the first mover are very important because they create what we call demonstration effect. With the demonstration effect, then you are able to with evidence well gathered, you are able to then amplify and see if is there a reason or need for people to replicate. So it comes to a really and careful selection on who goes first. And usually those who go first are kind of willing to experiment. And so and in good position. But the whole objective is to make sure that we gather evidence that can convince others who are going to be second mover, third movers, and to adapt. The other aspect is to make sure that innovations can be adapted, or pieces or parts of those innovations can be applied. It doesn't need to be the entire innovation, but some parts may fit to specific market actors. Some parts can fit to the other ones, but they have to make sure that they choose the right mix on the composition of the innovation. They don't have to take it entirely because they may not be prepared to implement as it was designed.
No,
So they have to
fantastic.
fit their size. They have to fit their. Yeah, one of the issue that we found was a financial issue. So some companies are small, and they have to internalize that. They have to go on their own pace, not just because the project is funding some of the parts of the innovations.
Hmm. Well, thank you very much. I know that you're hosting a webinar that basically goes into more detail about your project and the lessons that you've learned from your project, and how the rest of us MSD market systems development professionals can learn from your experiences. I just wonder if you can talk a bit more about that, how you came to be hosting this particular webinar and your relationship as far as the Mozambique Market Systems Development Network is concerned.
Well, yes, we are part of the Mozambique MSD network, and is we have been, at least this year we have been hosting a few as a MSD. And this time is a responsibility for FDF Innova to champion one event, and we chose to champion this one, what we call facilitating access to market um, in Mozambique. The what, one of the challenge that we face is that only about 15-20% of what is produced is sold. Basically, is sold in the market, and
Did
that
you say
come
fifteen
from many
percent?
reasons.
1 5.
Yes, 15 between 15-20% of what is produced is sold, gets to the market. Um, and there are many reasons. We found many reasons. One can be a quality of the produce. Two can be lack of incentive, low prices. The other one can be access in terms of remoteness. They can transport their produce to the market. But on the other side, we also find output bias with some predatory behavior, dictating prices, not rewarding for quality of the produce. You find a maize that is not sorted and maize that is sorted being paid at the same price. So all those issues contribute to limited access to market. So what we are trying to do is to tackle those fundamental market failure issues, right? So we came up with some innovations that we want to share in this workshop. One of the innovation is has to do with what we call performance-based supply chain mechanism. The whole idea is that because farmers are dispersed and are heterogeneous, land sizes are different, capacities to produce are different, access to inputs can also vary. This performance-based mechanism, it basically says that a output buyer has to be able to invest in best performer farmers who will supply produce with the quality and regularity that he expects. That was the issue because most of the time we would hear output buyers contracting farmers to supply goods, but at the end, farmers would sell or would breach contract, would sell, would decide to sell because someone else came with good price, and forgetting that the product has been promoted by someone. Someone have advanced inputs on credit, have signed contract, and so on. So that type of relationship was not a kind of healthy. So we came out with proposal of looking at this performance based. So the whole idea is to create incentives, invest in long-term relationships, and select farmers that meet certain criteria to be able to deliver the quality of the product and with the regularity that you expect. So that was one innovation. Um, the other innovation was to bring what we call a locally grown produce to the market by using supermarkets. So most you may know that supermarkets most of the times they may sell imported produce, but we found that their products locally grown Mozambique with a special taste. So we wanted to incentivize locally grown Mozambican grown produce to reach out to supermarkets. And so we partnered with a supermarket chain to pilot one of those ideas, and it worked well. So
Nice.
there are issues like rice from a specific place, aromatic rice, organic, that is now at the supermarket. It was not there before. But that's
Fantastic.
one other strategy. We have another strategy of the input distribution trucks when trucks transport inputs on a regular basis through rural areas. Remember the distribution network that I described before?
Yes.
So the trucks would leave the warehouse to a rural area to deliver inputs, but they were coming empty. So we partnered with this distributor, and actually it's a logistics service provider that was doing the transportation business for input distribution, and we felt that the, using backhauling space would not only reduce transportation cost even for the distribution, but also for accessing um, um, produce to the urban areas. So the idea is on the way back, use the big hauling space
Yes.
to transport vegetables to the urban and consumer areas. Right? So that was another way of allowing farmers to have access to transportation and also selling their produce in a rural in urban areas.
Fantastic.
That's one strategy, and the third or the fourth strategy was um, that most of the times when a specific um, output buyer signs contract or is promoting or is procuring produce, it faces challenges that are mostly linked to how the smallholder farmers are growing their crops. And one of the challenge is access to technology, which mean input information and knowledge. So we said, how about thinking about what we call um, supply chain finance and strategic alliances. So the strategic alliances basically allows several market actors to work together towards one benefit. For instance, an output buyer would be willing to buy a specific product with a specific quality, but the smallholder farmers do not have access to inputs, not even technology. So if those two areas can work together, if an output buyer can collaborate with input seller will deliver inputs on a credit basis. And when the output buyer is buying, then we'll pay back the input cost and other services that was advanced by on credit. That works with the transportation as well. So we are trying to look at the whole system, not only one area. So you could bring several other areas to work together. So promoting strategic alliances could also help access to market for the smallholder farmers.
Fantastic. I mean, that's a lovely innovation. So I expect that you had a financial institution join this alliance to manage the transaction between the output buyer, the input seller, and the farmer.
Yes, we have not reached there yet,
Okay.
but that's the direction.
Oh, excellent.
I think if these interventions, if these small things that we're doing start sticking in, of course there is a need to bring in a financial institution there that will see interest in a development. But one thing that is important from the market system perspective is that whoever is in the market, it should make business sense to be there.
Mm.
Otherwise, then it's going to collapse because projects are here today but not tomorrow. But if someone start understanding that there's a business opportunity to be in the market, then this person could be supported and so that he can grow and understand even better how to change his business practices.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for sparing the time and explaining in such a really nice and clear, eloquent way all of the things that we can learn from Feed the Future. Thank you very much. My hope is that you will come back and discuss post-event, how the event went, and even tell us about you as a person, how you came to work in economic development and driving this incredible project in Mozambique. So thank you very much for joining us. Um, we are looking forward to the webinar, the Mozambique uh, Market Systems Development Network. They're putting up a webinar, and this will be hosted by Raul and his project to explain and teach us what we potentially can use in all of our other projects around Africa, around the world, really. So thank you very much for sharing the innovations and sparing the time. I know it's a busy time for you. So thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to see you again in the event.
Thank you very much. So there you have it. That's all we have time for. As a matter of fact, it's given us far more than ordinarily we arranged for him to spare for us. So we thank Rahul for his patience and his clear explanation of all of the stuff that has happened in the future. So please join us for the webinar. The webinar will be broadcasted live on DevTV, and we certainly will probably have a bit more discussion before the 21st. And the detail and how to register for the webinar will be posted on our LinkedIn page, YouTube page, and Facebook page, and the Mozambique Market System Network LinkedIn page. So look out for that, and please join us next time. Thank you for sparing the time to watch this episode, and thank you to Raul. It's been fantastic. See you next time.